Hello everyone. Today we're going to talk about 10 tips for tenderfoots in family history. There are many resources that give advice to beginning genealogists. I will list some of those resources at the end of this presentation. This presentation is my list, designed to save you from making some of the same mistakes I have made in the past. I will go through them pretty fast, but hopefully adequately. I hope you'll forgive me using a couple of examples from previous presentations. Tip number 1. Start with information you already have, preferably information that is documented. It's important not to try to come forward from someone you think you might be related to, from family legend. Often that legendary ancestor is someone famous or very wealthy. I will give you a quick example of this from my personal family history. My paternal second great-grandfather's name was John Sinclair. According to family legend, he was Captain John Sinclair of the younger branch of the Earls of Caithness, Sir John Sinclair being our ancestor. Sir John was born at Thurso Castle in Caithness, Scotland, and was the author of the Statistical Accounts of Scotland, all 21 volumes. As a young woman, believing this family story, I visited Edinburgh and viewed the portrait of Sir John Sinclair, my illustrious ancestor, in the Scottish National Gallery. Years later, with a little more maturity and experience, I discovered the true story. My second great-grandfather, John Sinclair, was born in Paisley, Renfrew, Scotland. He and his father were weavers. At the age of 17, he joined the East India Bengal Army and lived out his days in India. Try as I might, I have not been able to connect him with the Sinclairs of Thurso Castle or Sir John Sinclair. His true identity was discovered by genealogy research, tracing him back from my father, my grandfather, and my great-grandfather, not from the portrait hanging on the wall in the Scottish National Gallery. Tip number 2. Be very open-minded when it comes to spelling. The further back you go, the more variations you will get in the spelling of names. Spelling was less important the farther back in time you go. Here are 2 names in my family and some of the variations of spelling. I have seen at least 20 variations of the spelling of the name Paminter, some even in the same document. Many of your ancestors did not know how to read and write, so the spelling of their name was left to the person who was recording the event. Couple this fact with a strong local dialect or a foreign accent, and no wonder the spelling is very different from the spelling we see today. Spelling is not just limited to surnames. Take the example of the village of Longstanton. When I entered it into the Family Search Wiki as one word, which is correct, it found 2 entries. When I entered it as 2 words, which is also correct, I found 76 entries. Even Wikipedia hasn't decided how to spell the name. It uses both versions in its online article. Tip number 3. Check all available records for the time period your ancestor would have lived. Start with all the censuses and vital records, but don't dismiss other records which can give rich information about your ancestor. For example, military service records often give a physical and character description of your relative and usually birth date and place information as well. They sometimes also mention the next of kin. Here is the World War I service record for Harry Huckle, with the transcription on the left and the original record on the right. Not only does the original give a physical description of Harry, but also comments on his character. It states, his character is very good, that he is honest, reliable, and hard-working, a very useful man. It's important to dig deep and identify as many sources as you can. Each piece of information adds another piece of the proverbial puzzle and helps you to see the person more clearly. Let's return to the 1900 US Census, where I found James Ingray and his family. I checked each census up to the 1940 census, where I got this very helpful additional piece of information. Living with James Ingray in 1940 was his brother-in-law, John W. Broadwell, and sister-in-law, Sarah Broadwell. This information helped me to identify the last name of his wife. She was Helen Broadwell, sister of John Broadwell. Tip number 4, I call No Man is an Island. Recently, I have been trying to identify my relatives in over 200 late 19th century family photos, which I just acquired. I used a facial recognition program to help identify people, but it only showed me the face to identify them. With a few people, that wasn't too difficult, but with others, I needed the context of the photo to help me identify them. Once I saw this cute little girl's face with her family, it was easy to identify who she was. It is the same with other areas of family history. Seeing your ancestor in context will reveal who he or she is. Researching the people and situations that surround your ancestor is essential. Who were their siblings, their relatives, their next-door neighbors? Did they live in a town or out in the country? All these contexts help you to not only correctly identify your ancestor, but also get to know more about him or her. Tip number 5, don't make assumptions or jump to conclusions. Meet William and Sarah Beaumont. A truly amazing couple. William was born in Rickmansworth, Hertfordshire. They were married in Bristol, had 23 children, some born in Yorkshire, Rotherham, Thornhill, and Bolby-cum-Hexthorpe, some born in Cambridgeshire, Swavesey, Stoke-on-Quye, and they also appeared on the 1851 and 1861 census in London. In actuality, there were 6 different William and Sarah Beaumont couples. Inexperienced researchers did not realize that it is possible for several men called William Beaumont to all marry women named Sarah. Through some bad merging, they assumed there was only one William and Sarah Beaumont in the whole of England and attached all 23 children to them. This is just one example of why it is vital to do thorough research and explore all possibilities, especially when things don't look quite right. Tip number 6, know what you are searching. Read about the record set you are looking at. What information will you find in the record? What years and places are covered? Should your ancestors be there? If not, are there other jurisdictions you could look at? There are also search techniques you could use. Start with a broad search and narrow it down. The more information you enter, the more you limit your results. Enter less to get more results. A broader search will also allow for transcription errors. You can search by just a surname or the first name. Always use a date range and not the exact year. And try different online sites. Some may be easier to use, have different data sets, and have different search options that would make your search more efficient. Tip number 7. Always look at the images of the original record if they are available. The original almost always has more information than the transcription. When transcribing a record, to make it searchable, there are fields that need to be completed. A lot of times there is information on the original record that does not have a corresponding field, so that information cannot be recorded. Sometimes the transcription is incorrect, and because you know the family, you can better understand the record and some of the names or terms that are difficult for someone else to decipher. Here is my favorite example that illustrates this point. It is from some burial records that I was indexing. I thought it was such a great example that I took a screenshot. The transcription gives an accurate, succinct account of the death at sea of Hugh Lee. However, the original burial entry states, "The body of a man unknown, picked up off Black Gang, supposed to be about 30 years of age and to have been in the sea about 6 weeks." But look at the rich information found in the margin of the original record. It states, "On the 17th of June 1869, the body was claimed as that of Hugh Lee, able seaman, after having been washed overboard the RM steamship Oneida off the Needles on the 10th of February 1869, by his widow, who on seeing in the newspaper a notice of the inquest held over the body at Chale, came here and called on me. The clothes found on the body were in an unusually well-preserved state, and led the widow to conclude that it was the body of her husband. The widow was residing at Southampton. I would certainly want to know that story if this was my relative." Tip number 8. Keep good notes. Keep a research log. Make note of the records you've checked and the results, whether they are positive or negative. Make copies of the documents whenever you can. Record your information in a genealogy database, whether it is an online or a personal database on your computer. We know that Family Search is editable by others, so always have a clean copy of your tree that can only be edited by you. You won't remember your train of thought, even if you think you will. Taking notes will prevent you from having to check the same records again. Writing a report will help you to pick up where you left off. Record it in your personal database, linked to the ancestor it refers to. Number 9. Use record hints, suggested records, and trees created by others with caution. Hints and suggested records on online sites are often computer generated and are based on the information that is already there or has been inputted by others. They are just that, hints. It is necessary to examine them and determine if they are correct before adding them to your research. Copying other people's trees is dangerous. A lot of times their tree is a copy of a copy of a copy, so it is hard to get back to the tree's original creator. Even then, the tree is only as good as the research that was done to build it in the first place. Use others' trees as a guide, but not as a definitive source. Tip number 10. Learn as you go. There are so many resources available that can help you become more proficient in your research. Here are just a few. The Family History Guide, Family Search, the Wiki, and the Learning Center, the BYU Family History Library website, Ancestry Academy, YouTube videos, conferences, and genealogy groups. If your ancestors stayed in a particular area for generations, you might want to think about joining the local family history society for that area. Local family historians have specialized knowledge and resources that are not always available by any other means. They often have a quarterly journal that talks about the region or even specific families in the region. They also have member lists of surname interests whom you can contact. Some will do lookups in the area records or check out a cemetery for you. Often they offer products at a reduced price that the society has indexed or filmed. Here are the additional resources I promised to post at the end of this presentation. Good luck with your research, and thanks for watching.